全面推进乡村振兴，加快农业农村现代化的意见。
the rural revitalization across the board and accelerate the agricultural and rural modernization. The central authorities have published a document, and that is what we call the #1 document. In order to help you to better understand the contents in the #1 document and also have an accurate understanding of the document, today we have invited Minister of Agriculture and Rural Affairs, Mr. Tang Renjian, to participate in the press conference today and also do the briefing. Later, he will also take your questions. Together with Minister Tang, we have invited Vice Minister Zhang Taoling from Mara, Party Group Member and Secretary General Mr. Wu Hongyao from the Central Rural Affairs Bureau Secretariat. First to Mr. Tang. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. We have celebrated the Lunar Chinese New Year, and we have become more busy with the spring farming. Yesterday, the central authorities have published the #1 document about advancing the rural revitalization across the board and accelerating agricultural and rural modernization. This is the 18th #1 document published by the central government since the new century. It's also a big gift to agricultural sector and to our farmers. And very briefly, I'd like to talk about the content in this document. First of all, the background of elaboration of the document. In 2020, under the strong leadership of the CBC Central Committee with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core, rural and agricultural development has overcome the difficulties brought by the COVID-19 and other difficulties. We have maintained a good trend of development, and we have successfully completed the tasks of the 13th Five-Year Plan. First of all, productivity of agriculture has entered into a new era. For 6 years in a row, the output of the grains exceeded 1.3 trillion jin, and agricultural growth is based on the scientific advancement in 60% of the cases, and the general ratio of mechanization reached 71%. Fertilizers, chemical products used for 4 years in a row registered a negative growth. Second, for the battle against the poverty, we have realized a decisive victory. Under the current standard, we have helped all the people in the countryside to leave the status of poverty. We have lifted a lot of counties and townships out of poverty, and this is a miracle in the human history of poverty alleviation. And thirdly, we have registered a rapid growth in the farmers' income. For 11 years in a row, the growth rate of the farmers' income outpaced that of the urban residents, and the gap of income dropped by 2.64 versus 1 to 2.51 versus 1. And we have already doubled the income compared to the level of 2001. And today, we have also significantly improved the infrastructure and living environment for the farmers. We have strengthened the weak links. Rural reforms has gone into the depth, and today we have energized the whole countryside. We have also embraced historic achievements in the rural development, setting a solid foundation for the building of a moderately prosperous society. For the coming 14th five-year period, we should open a new chapter of the development of a modernized socialist country. We are working towards the second centenary goal. In the fifth plenary session of the 19th Central Committee, we have attached strategic importance to the development of agriculture and rural sectors. And last year, in the Central Conference on Rural Affairs, President Xi has sent a very clear signal. In our new trip, the three rurals would remain on top of our agenda, and we should not lower our guard and lose sight of the major issues. According to President Xi, we should pay attention to two top issues. First of all, the rejuvenation of the country, and second, the revitalization of the countryside. We have to stick to the development of the three rurals, which are the stabilizing element for the development of the whole country. We should build our country into a modernized socialist country and also realize the rejuvenation of our nation. And the foundation lies with the countryside. In the important speech of President Xi, we have found inspirations for the elaboration of the #1 document for rural development of this year. Secondly, for the content of the #1 document. For this year, we should diligently follow the guidance given by President Xi and apply the decisions of the fifth plenary session of the 19th Central Committee in order to advance modernization of agriculture and rural areas, and also to realize the vitalization of the rural areas. We have to do the following. We have two not to do and two good starts and one strengthening. For the two must not to do, we should not lose sight of our grain production and also the results achieved in the poverty alleviation. We have to consolidate the success achieved in the battle against the poverty. We have to make sure that we can safeguard the results and people will not fall back into poverty. It is clearly noted that in all the regions and primary level counties, we have to raise the per unit of production so that we can realize the goal of the total production of grain of 1.3 trillion jin. And for the two good starts, we have to launch very good starts for the agricultural modernization. For the seeds and arable lands, they are the two important elements. And also, we should equip the agricultural sector with science and technologies, set up the modernized industrial system, operational system in the countryside, and also realize the green development in agricultural sector. For the rural modernization, we should start to build a beautiful countryside in order to improve the infrastructure, living environment, and also the public service system, in order to integrate the development of the countryside with that of the urban areas. For the strengthening, it is to strengthen the leadership of CPC on the work of agricultural and rural sectors. We have to complete the mechanism of the leadership by the CPC and make sure that CPC can play a better role in the leadership in the countryside affairs. We should give priority to the development of the countryside and also ensure the investment of resources. This year's #1 document is based on the current circumstances, and we have also clarified the tasks that should be completed for this year. And we have already our to-do list for this year. At the same time, we are also aiming at the long-term development in order to have a good chapter to start the 14th five-year plan. We made it clear the principles to follow and also the directions during the 14th five-year plan. So this year's #1 document is also a roadmap to follow for the next 5 years to come. And now, joined by my colleagues, we'd like to take your questions. Thank you very much, Mr. Tang. Now the floor is open for your questions. Before giving the question, please first identify yourself. Thank you. Good morning. I'm from CCTV. Last year, we have witnessed a rise in the grain prices, and many countries have paid more attention to their own supply of the grains, and food security has become an issue of wide interest. What is our plan, and how can we ensure our own food safety in the country? Thank you. Thank you for your question. For the first question, you have mentioned the food supply and security. It means that the whole society has attached great importance to this topic. I'd like to start with this one. Last year, in the Central Meeting on Rural and Agricultural Development, President Xi has made it clear that food security is the basis of the national policy, because the most important thing for people is to be nourished with sufficient food. For a big country like ours with 1.4 billion population, to guarantee the food security for our population is a permanent issue. We can never overestimate its importance. Over the past years, we have always ensured sufficient output of the grain. For example, last year, we have exceeded 1.3 trillion jin of production, which is 10 billion jin more of the previous year. And today, we also have sufficient grain in stock. So today, I can promise to you that we can fully guarantee the supply of the grain. And we are also independent in terms of the supply of the crops. Last year, challenged by COVID-19, for the crops and also major agricultural products, we have guaranteed the basic supply and also a good price in the market. We have survived in this big challenge. But on the other hand, we should also be aware that the food supply in China is always in a very tight balance. In the future, for the 14th five-year plan or even longer period of time to come, with the upgrading of consumption and the growing of the population, there will be more rigid rise in the food demand. And today, facing the uncertainties and also instabilities in the global circumstances, we should never lower our guards talking about this topic of the food security. And we should also raise the coefficient of the security of crops. That means we should produce more and keep more in the storage. For the domestic market, we should stabilize the production and supply so that we can respond to the uncertainties in the global environment. If we have enough supply and storage, then we will not be worried by the external elements. According to President Xi, we should be independent in the supply of the food. And we should always be vigilant in terms of the food supply and production. In terms of the food production, this is always a top priority for our country. So according to that speech of President Xi, we can know that today we are coordinating the development and also the safety. And we have accorded great importance to the production of the crops. In order to realize this goal, we should do the following two jobs. First of all, we should ensure sufficient arable lands, and also we have to support the agricultural development with science and technology. Because the crops production are the basis of our nation. Moving forward, we will apply the most strict policies to safeguard the basic surfaces of areas for the arable land. We should never allow people to defer the land for use not decided for agriculture. And we should ensure the total surface of the arable land contributed to the agricultural crop production for the permanent farmland. We should not let people to grow the fruit trees that will last for several years, but only for those vegetables that can be rotated year after year. And for the high-yield farmland, they should be contributed for the growing of the crops. That is our next stage of plan for the high-standard farmland in order to raise the output of the crops. And we should pay attention to the high-quality land. We should make sure that for the 2 seasons of harvest, they could be 1 ton of the crops per unit. For the northeastern part of China, it's a big production area, and we have to ensure their productivity. We only have limited water resources and also arable land resources. So the only way to increase the output of the grains is to rely on the science and technology. That's why we say that we should rely on the science and technologies and also the guarantee of the services of our farmland. With modern science and technologies and also the modern machineries and equipments, we can consolidate the whole sector of crop growing. At the same time, we should also have 2 systems of assistance. More specifically, it means that we should make this farming work more profitable for our farmers. We have to improve the system of subsidies and also give more allowances to our farmers. And secondly, we should ask local governments to assume their responsibilities in terms of helping the farmers out. So in the #1 document, it is stated that for the party side and also for the local government side, both of them should assume their responsibilities so that the acreage of the production of the crops at the local level, for example, in the provinces, can be guaranteed. For the guarantee of supply, we should not only focus on the quantity but also on the diversity. If we can ensure the quantity and the diversity at the same time, we can meet the demand of the customers, and also we can better improve the quality of the sector. So today we have to continue with the diversification of the agricultural sector, diversification of the products, and also diversification of the growing regions, as well as the making of the brands. This is mentioned in the speech of President Xi that we have to create more famous brands for the agro products. We have to provide better quality products with more choices and with better efficacy to the market so that we can satisfy the diversified needs of our consumers in the market. Next question, please. Thank you. I'm from the Red Star newspaper. Seeds are the chips of agriculture. Today, at the central level, it is mentioned that we have to win the battle for the development of the seeds. So what are the detailed measures to realize this goal? This is a very good question. I'd like to take this one. And my colleague, Vice Minister Zhang Taoling, he is in charge of this affair, so I'd like to give the floor to him. Just now, Minister Tang has mentioned the importance of science and technology as well as the guarantee of the acreage of crop growing. And science and technology could help us with the seed industry. And the seed sector is at the origin of the whole production chain. With the better seeds, we can guarantee the food supply. But at the same time, the acreage of the arable land is also another important key. So today, the seeds industry has attracted the attention of the top priorities, and people cared a lot about the development and future development trend of the seed industry. And what is the next step of measures to support this sector? According to the Central Conference, we have to win the battle to realize the fast development of the seeds. In the #1 document, it is stated that we should deploy more measures to support the seeds development. This is a very important decision by the Central Committee. It is also the key to stay independent in the production of the grains, and also a way to improve people's well-being, and also to advance the agriculture and rural development. So how is our seed industry? In general, in our country, we have guaranteed the seed security in the country. We have the risks under control. Especially since the 18th CPC Congress, we have achieved significant progress in the development of the seeds. Currently, for the crops, and more largely for the plants, we are independent in the provision of the seeds. Today, we have applied our independently researched and developed seeds in 95% of the acreage of lands. And also for the livestock, and also some special aquaculture products, they are also guaranteed by our independent technologies. Today we have 75% and 85% of the crop seeds and also the other races of animals. This is an important guarantee of our agro-food supply. Considering the current development of the seed industry, in order to face the new chapter of development and also compared to the most advanced level of the developed countries in agriculture, we should admit that we still have some weak links to be strengthened, which require more efforts of our side. First of all, talking about the varieties, we still have a lot of efforts to make. Currently, for the soybeans, the per unit of production is still lagging behind, only less than 60% of that of US. For the vegetables, for example, the tomatoes and also the sweet peppers that can be stocked during a long period of time, we have imported a lot of them. More than 50% of them are imported. For the pigs, the raising efficiency, and also for the dairy cows, the annual production arrives at only 80% of the most advanced level of the world, especially for the white feather hens. Their races are imported. So for those varieties and races, they are directly linked to the quality, efficiency, and speed of the development of agricultural sector. And secondly, for the quality of the seeds, today we have not yet fully protected the germplasm for the local species and also for some precious endangered varieties. There are more risks challenging them today in the market. Independent development of technologies is not enough, especially for the theories concerning the development of new varieties and races compared to the advanced countries. We still have a long way to go. And also for the enterprises who are a major player in the market of competition. a lot of them have overlapped researches and they have not formed a synergy. And considering the demand of our era, we are facing an urgent task. Today, we should be focused on the domestic demand in order to satisfy the need of the people. And we should also help them to pursue a better quality of life and also develop some high-function races. We should cultivate more highly productive and green, high-quality, water-saving, good varieties that are also adjusted to the high ratio of mechanization. Today, we are also using the science and technology of AI and also the genome editing. This is the modern biotechnology revolution, and we should accelerate our reform in order to realize historic progress with the seed industry. Talking about our future plans, we have already made it clear in the #1 document. There is a top design and also systematic deployment of efforts. We have the whole system of logics concerning the protection of the germplasm, breakthroughs of scientific researches, management of the whole chain of seed production. In general, we should stick to the bottom line concept and also be oriented by the real issues to be resolved. We have to guarantee the quality, quantity, and also diversity of our seeds, and also follow the role of an innovative development of the seed industry to bring into full play our advantages. We have 5 aspects to follow. First of all, for the germplasm, we have to give more protection to that site. That is also the origin of our R&D. We have to accelerate our researches and also investigations on the varieties and species for the crops, livestock, and the special races, and build up our database and germplasm in the country, and also set up a system for the better use of those resources. Secondly, we should be independent in the innovation. This is the key to our seed development. And for the core technologies, we should realize the breakthroughs as soon as possible in order to apply the most advanced biotechnologies in the cultivation of new breeds. For the crops and also the livestock, we should carry out more joint researches and development of new species, and also to advance with the cutting-edge R&D, support the development of the platforms of researches, for example, that one in southern part of China. And thirdly, the seed enterprises should grow stronger because they are the main entities in the seed industries. We have to select a series of key enterprises of the seed industry and also streamline our administration, delegate power, and improve our regulations concerning these enterprises so that today we can have a commercialization of the whole system of science and researches. And fourth, we have to advance the quality of researchers in the platforms and institutes of researches. Today, we should build up the modernized basis for the cultivation of breeds and seeds. For the livestock, aquaculture, and crops, we have to set up a system of guarantee of supply of their breeds. And fifth, we have to create a more enabling market environment. In order to support the market, we have to protect the IPR Only by better protection of the IPR could we ensure people's enthusiasm about innovation. So in a word, we have to accelerate the building of an innovative system of the seas, including the protection of the seas, industrial system, and management system. So the three systems in place. And also be more independent in the research and development, mobilize the enterprises to form a synergy in the development of the new seas, and also strengthen our regulation and lawmaking system. So, for our domestic sector of the seas is not as weak as described by the outside voices. However, compared to the most advanced countries, we still have a long road to go. So for those seas concerning the survival of the people, we have no worries. But moving forward, we should guarantee the diversity of the varieties that could meet the diversified needs of the people. So in order to win that battle for the development of the seas, we have to follow the 5 aspects of work mentioned by my colleague, Mr. Zhang Taoling. Thank you. I'm from Fengmian News. Prices are a big concern for our people. Recently, we have noted some rises of the prices. What have you done to guarantee the supply and prices of the pork? Could we enjoy cheaper pork this year? Thank you. Talking about the agro-food prices, especially the prices of the vegetable basket food, this remains a big concern for our people. So it's also a focus of our public attention. The pork, since last year, remains a topic of our studies and investigations. We have applied multiple measures to restore the production of the pigs and also the meat of the pork. Last year, the stock of the pigs should be restored to the level of 2017 by 80%. And by the end of the year, we have exceeded the set goal by more than 17 points. So that's why during the Spring Festival period, we have not registered big fluctuations in the pork prices. So in general, the momentum for the prices of the agro-food in the market is good. And moving forward, there will be more pigs slaughtered in order to guarantee the supply of the pork in the market. So generally, we could say that we have already survived the most difficult moment for the supply of the pork. And moving forward, there will be more room and a more eased market supply for the pork. For Q1, there will be 40% more of the supply of pork. And by the end of Q2, we could restore to the same level of that of 2017 for the second half of this year, because we're about to restore to the normal level in terms of the stock of pigs and also the pork. There will be better supply in the market and better prices. This year, it is mentioned by the Central Committee that we have to guarantee the supply of the pigs and also apply the long-term mechanism to guarantee the permanent supply of the pork. So currently, we should pay attention to the restoration of the production and also to guarantee the long-term supply. We all know about the cycles of the production of pigs. We have been tortured by this circle, and we should learn the lesson from the past and never repeat this history. So currently, we are doing the investigation and studies apart from the comprehensive measures. For the next stage to come, we are about to come up with new ideas to stock more pork. So when enterprises encounter some temporary difficulties, we should not let them slaughter the pigs in an arbitrary way in order to protect the total stock of the productivity. And moving forward, we will elaborate new policy about the guarantee of the stock of productivity of the pigs. Currently, we are in discussion with relevant departments. And also, I'd like to share with you one view. Around this festival season, we have visited the neighboring areas. We are assured by the market performance. This year, many people have stayed for the vacation. However, luckily, we have guaranteed the market supply, and for the channels of transportation, we have also removed all the obstacles in the channels. In some places, the price even fell to 4 yuan, and I know that the cost is also 4 yuan. For the basket of vegetables, I hope that you would understand that it's not the lower the better, because if the price goes too low, then it will also hurt the feelings of the farmers, and then we will start another circle of the prices, and that is no good for the market, and this will lead to fluctuations of prices. In recent days, we have witnessed the rising prices of the vegetables, and people are concerned with the supply and also the market tendency of the vegetable basket. So you have asked an overall question about the whole supply of the vegetable basket. So again, to Mr. Zhang Taoling, vegetable basket of agro-foods are closely connected with people's daily life. Just now, we have touched on the hot issue of the pork, and I will add up some more information about the vegetables. Vegetables are grown in specific seasons, especially in March and April. It's the juncture moment connecting winter and summer. Usually around this moment of the year, we will be witnessing a rise in the price of those products. And it's the season with fewer supplies. And also we are challenged by the cold weathers. Multiple reasons led to the rises of the prices of these seasonal vegetables. So it is still a seasonal fluctuation of the price. In our ministry, we have set up a specific working group to guarantee the prices of the vegetables. We have been monitoring the prices in the market for those vegetables. At the same time, we have also sent our technicians of agricultural technologies to help the farmers to guarantee the production of the vegetables so that we can have a very stable production in general. And thirdly, we have given guidelines to the local levels. So in different places, we can select a batch of bases to be the emergency response bases. We have also created the hotlines to answer to the questions and concerns of the people according to the current deployment of measures. Until now, we have an 85 million mu of plantation of vegetables, which is 1 million more compared to the same period of last year. And every month we have 54 million tons of vegetables coming into the market, year-on-year increase of 2%. With temperatures going up, despite the fluctuations of temperatures in the recent days, vegetables would enter a hot season for production. So for the next period to come, the total production and supply of vegetables could be guaranteed. And it is expected that the prices of the vegetables would follow the annual rule of development. That means with temperatures coming up, the prices of the vegetables would go down. And we will give timely assistance and guidelines to local governments, and we will help them to coordinate their COVID-19 response and guarantee of vegetable supply. Next question, please. Thank you. I'm from the China Review of Hong Kong, SAR. Last year is the critical year for lifting people out of poverty. For more than 800 counties, we have lifted all the people out of poverty. Currently, we are coordinating the efforts of consolidating our results in the poverty alleviation and also advancing the modernization of agriculture and rural sectors. What is your measure for that end? This is another hot topic among the population. So this year, MARA has proposed that we should ensure two aspects. First of all, to ensure a total output of the grains of more than 1.3 trillion jing, and the second is to ensure that there will not be a big number of people falling back into poverty. To get people out of poverty is not all. We should also guarantee the well-being of the people living in the countryside. So, for the 3 rules after the 13th five-year plan, our focus would be shifted towards the rural vitalization, especially for the 14th five-year plan. Poverty alleviation, due to the weak foundations in some places in China, could see some backward trend of development. That means some people may risk to fall back into poverty. So that's why we have made it clear in the central documents that there will not be a major number of people falling back into poverty. In general, we have lifted people out of poverty, and we have solved the daily life concerns and worries for them. But today, people still have a weak strength and possibilities to develop themselves, and the foundations for a further self-development are still very weak. That means that we have a very heavy task to accomplish. This year and for the whole 14th five-year period of time, we should consolidate our results of the poverty alleviation and also coordinate this with the rural vitalization, assume our responsibilities respectively, and make sure that there is no corner ignored by our policy, and all the policies can be put into place to benefit the people. For the counties out of poverty today, most of them are lifted out of poverty last year or the year before that. They should set up a period of 5-year transition. For that transition period, according to the speech of President Xi and also to the #1 document, they should guarantee the stable policies in place. At the same time, they should also improve their policies category by category, because in the past they have most of their policies aiming at the poverty alleviation. So today we should have the following up measures in place in order to assist those people and prevent a possible falling back into the poverty. We should have early discovery, early intervention, and early assistance to the people. Because if we wait for a longer period of time, then it's too late for us to give a helping hand to the people. We should help people to realize an independent development, to train them with the technologies, invest more capital and resources to the rural areas, so that they can develop their pillar industries to consolidate the results of the poverty alleviation. For those relocated population up to 9.6 million for the sake of the poverty alleviation, because they are moved to another place, we should also help them to develop new pillars of industries to generate new sources of income and be enriched as soon as possible. We, at the same time, should also pay attention to the infrastructure building and the social service systems, integrate those people into local communities. At the same time, we should care more about the low-income groups of people. For those people lingering on the threshold of poverty, we should give them long-term assistance. For those regions already out of poverty, we should give them more support. One important measure is with the western regions of China. We are about to select a new batch of key townships and counties for the rural vitalization. We will give them capital support and resources in order to realize the further development. At the same time, at local level, they will also select another batch of major counties to receive the government support. At the same time, we should also promote the transformation. That means for our working mechanism, there should be a transformation. During our work of the poverty alleviation, we have already formed a policy system and also the working system. During this period of time, according to our calculation, there are more than 200 documents related to this topic. Moving forward, there's more than 200 documents should be adapted to the new circumstances. For example, how we could mobilize the people and resources, ensure the policy supplies, and also the monitoring and guidance to the people. So all these above-mentioned areas require more improvements. For the next stage of poverty alleviation, we should continue with the shift of focus of work, that is to move towards the rural revitalization. For our working system, it should also be readapted to the new background of the rural revitalization. So in the past, our policies are mainly focused on the support to the poverty alleviation, and now more policies should be focused on the rural revitalization. That is the shift to make. Next question, please. Thank you. I'm from the Phoenix. In the fifth plenary session of the 19th Central Committee, we have mentioned the topic of the rural development. What are the specific measures to realize that goal? Thank you for your question. While promoting a rapid industrialization and modernization of the rural areas, we have also made a lot of efforts to transform the countryside and also reshape the area of the countryside. How will we build a better countryside? This is a task given by our time. In the fifth plenary session of the 19th Central Committee, we have initiated the action of the rural building. The rural building should be on top of our agenda. In this year's #1 document, we have also made detailed deployment. Just now, according to our minister, we should make 2 good starts for agricultural production and for the rural modernization. One important way to realize the rural development is to well apply this task of the rural building action. First of all, with the hardware is the infrastructure in the countryside, and for the software, it's with the service system, so that we can better integrate the social development in both rural and urban areas. So from the 2 following aspects, I'd like to talk about our deployment of efforts. First of all, we should do a good job in the designing of our plan. Without the plan, there will be a lot of violations of rules and laws, and it will be a very huge cost for us to correct the wrongdoings. So first of all, we should make our planification clear to the people, and also come up with a very good classification of our work. For the qualified villages, they could take the lead. For the rural building plans, they should be based on the current status quo. The plans should be practical. We should not abandon all the existing conditions and demolish everything in order to start a brand new chapter. We should conserve the rural culture and also the local taste so that we can have the diversity guaranteed in the countryside. And we should not force the farmers to follow our guidance and use one policy-fits-all manner to do our work. And second, for the management of environment for the daily life for the people, since 2018, we have started our action to improve the daily life environment for the people. For example, the treatment of the sewage and waste. Today, the sewage treatment is one of our big priorities moving forward. For the management of the living environment of the farmers, we will apply the 5-year working plan, and also in an orderly manner, we will continue with the reform of the toilets and also the treatment of the sewage water in the countryside, so that people can have more well-being guaranteed, and also they can enjoy a better environment for the daily life. In recent years, quality electricity and gas supply is guaranteed at the level of the administrative villages. Today, all of them can enjoy the access to those resources. But inside the villages, still we can witness some weaknesses with their inner village infrastructures and channels. So today, we should not only guarantee the network of the coverage, but also extend our channels of transportation of resources to each household in the countryside. Let me take an example. For the safe drinking water problem, we have basically solved this issue. And moving forward, we should guarantee the supply of the water. And we have already solved the problem of the electricity access to the people. Moving forward, we should guarantee the stability of the electricity supply in the industrial production. For the natural villages, we should continue to build up new roads. For example, the roads for the tourists and for the industrial production. And for the storage logistics and also the cold chains, they should have the last kilometer problems resolved in order to reach to every natural villages. So finally, our farmers would be the beneficiaries of these policies and measures. At the same time, we should not lose sight of the improvement of public services. Today, we have already guaranteed accessibility of those public services, but compared to the services quality in the urban areas, so there's a long way to go, and we should also adapt our services to the real demands of our farmers. For example, the elderly care, for the education, and also for the social security network, we should give equal access to the farmers compared to the urban citizens, so that we can ensure the equality in terms of access to the social services. And finally, in our #1 document, it's also stated that we have to make our priorities clear and outstanding. For infrastructure and public service systems, at 3 levels in the countryside, we should realize the integration at different levels of the administration, we have different priorities, and the priorities at different levels of administration should be mutually completing and complementary. And we have to respect the willingness of the farmers and apply those measures accordingly to the real needs of the local villages and bring true benefits to our farmers. So build for the farmers is really important. It's requested by General Secretary Xi and also by the #1 document. We build the countryside not for us, but for the farmers. So we should put the requirements of the farmers, the expectations of the farmers at first for always. During the 14th five-year plan period, we should always stick to this point, and we should not apply the method of formalities for the sake of formalities. That is very important and should not fall into the trap of the bureaucratism. Next question, please. Thank you. I'm from the CCTV Agriculture Channel. I have a question for the housing land of the farmers. Some farmers, they have become migrant workers to work in the cities. For their house construction lands, they are in a waste status. So according to the #1 document, we have to guarantee the right of use of the farmers for those housing lands. But at the same time, how could we avoid the waste of the resources? Recently, the central government and authorities have published a lot of policies about the house site in the countryside in order to protect the legitimate rights and interests of the farmers. Last year, in collaboration with relevant departments, our ministry has invested in more than 104 local places to start a pilot program of the reform on the house building lands in the countryside to clarify the division of the rights of utilization and the right of exploitation. We have to protect the rights and interests of the farmers regarding their house building lands. And at the same time, we should also guarantee that there is possibility for the transfer of the use right of these lands and also voluntary exits from the system so that we can increase the property-related income for the farmers. The reform of the house building land is directly connected to farmers' interests and benefits. It's also a sensitive topic. We have to be very patient in dealing with this topic, and we should follow the general principle of the public ownership of the land and at the same time to protect the interests and rights of the farmers. At the same time, we should make it clear that it's forbidden for the citizens in the urban areas to go to the countryside to take over those house building lands owned by the farmers to build up their own villas. And we should not force the farmers to leave their house building lands in the countryside and then move to the cities. We should always respect their willingness. Next question, please. Thank you. I'm from the Daily Economic News. Recently, Mara has published the opinion about biotechnology innovation and also the transfer of the technology. Does it mean that we're about to enter into a high-speed track of the biotechnology-based agricultural development, and also for the genetically modified crops? Actually, we have discussed about this issue in many cases. For the modified crops, we have consistent attitude. For the researchers, we would like to independent. And for the application, we should make sure that it's always safe. And for the management, and we are very prudent and strict for the publication of this opinion. This is part of our daily work. So on the one hand, we should promote the science-based researchers, and on the other hand, we should be very strict with the management. In the Central Conference on Rural Affairs, and also in the #1 document, it is stated that we should respect the science and technologies and also to promote the management of those genetically modified crops. The modified crops, they are an important part of the biotech-based breeding of the varieties. It is the vastly used biotechnology in today's agricultural sector. According to the statistics, since 1996, with the approbation of plantation of the genetically modified crops until now, 29 countries have cultivated on a surface of more than 40 billion mu of land for the genetically modified crops, and also many more countries have imported the modified crops. Concerning the modified crops, we should also base our work on science and technology, ensure the security of our production so that the GM and other modern technologies could better benefit our people. Thank you. Next question, please. Thank you. I'm from Farmers Daily. According to President Xi, we have to deepen the reform, especially the reform in key stages and key areas. So this year, what will be the priority measures concerning the key areas of agriculture for the reform? For example, the major entities and also the market system and also the government supportive policies are the key areas of the reforms. And we have already started the reform for many years, currently facing the new stage of development. For agricultural and rural reforms, we should continue to advance the rural revitalization. The biggest driving force for us is to continue with the reform. We are facing new circumstances for the reform. That's why we should move forward in a prudent manner and also apply a down-to-earth method. We should not fall back on the issues that we have already tackled in the past. For the reforms of key sectors that may have an overall impact of the sector, we should have extremely high patience. So for the Central Leading Group of Agriculture and Rural Affairs and MARA, we have this guideline to follow, and more specifically, I'd like to give the floor to my colleague. And just now, our minister has mentioned the general direction and principles to follow concerning the reform, and I'd like to brief you more details about the reforms. Since the third plenary session of the 18th Central Committee, we have started the systematic reform of the agricultural and rural systems. We have many plans in place, and also we have elaborated a series of mature law system and regulations. Entering into a new stage of development, we should advance the rural revitalization and also promote the agricultural and rural modernization. to energize the key parts of agricultural sector, and also to energize and mobilize the key elements and resources in this sector. We have already the deployment in the number 1 document, more specifically from the 3 following aspects. First of all, to consolidate and complete the operation system in the countryside. After years of efforts, today in the countryside, the certificate issuing system for the contracting right of the land is already confirmed. Until now, more than 200 million farmers have received this certificate in order to contract the land. Moving forward, we should consolidate the results of this proprietary rights determination and also extend the second round of contracting of land for another 3 decades and stabilize this contracting relationship. So that is the first one, to well benefit from the determination of the proprietary certificate. Second is to innovate in the operational system in the countryside. For the family farms and farmers' cooperatives, they are the 2 major new types of entities in the agricultural sector. We have to give more importance to the social service organizations so the household farmers could also enjoy the benefits of the modernization. In this year's reform of agricultural sector, there's another important task to be completed. That is to complete a preliminary stage reform of the collective proprietary reform. First of all, we have to determine the membership of the collective properties, and also we should explore the new types of collective rural economy. So that is to make the collective proprietary ownership clear. And third is to apply the land reform in the countryside. There were 2 types of land. First is the house building land. Just now we have touched upon that issue. We have the new round of pilot programs for the reform on house building lands in the countryside. This is directly linked to the interests of the farmers and is quite complicated. So that's why we have started with the pilot programs, and then we're about to extend our good practices across the country. We should clarify the ownership on the lands and also to divide of the division of the 3 rights concerning the lands. Another type of the land is the operational land for construction owned by the collectivity. According to the new law of the land management, the obstacles hindering the transactions and the transfer of the rights of this construction land owned by the collectivity are removed. But still, we have a further trajectory to follow in order to improve the system. We have already the laws in place, but we have to clarify more technical details about the regulations. At the basic level, people are complaining about the difficulties in the use of the land. And in our number 1 document, it is stated that we should complete and energize the unused land in the countryside and also set up a negative list. According to the distribution of the land in different use and also their distribution, we can innovate the different ways of provision of the land in order to solve that difficulty in the land use. And next is to guarantee the prioritized investment of resources to advance the rural revitalization. The key is with the priorities for the agricultural sector. For the priority sectors, we should mobilize more resources and capital. So today we have made it very clear at the central level with the publication of a lot of policies and measures. For example, in the budget investment, we have 5 rules. First of all, rural and agricultural sectors will be the first sectors to be guaranteed in the public financing. Second, in the central budget investment, more will be guided towards the agricultural and rural areas. And third, we should elaborate and apply the measures and the policies to increase the income related to the transfer of the land use rights, and there should also be an assessment system in place. And fourth, there should be a system in order to integrate the management of the funds used for agricultural assistance. And fifth, we should give more capital to support the improvement of agricultural infrastructure and social services. For the long-term financing for agricultural development, we should support the development of the credit. And also for the household, we should give them services of the small loans. And thirdly, we should also create a specialized financial products to support new forms of businesses in the countryside. And fourth, we should bring in full play the local features and advantages as well as their star products, and also expand the best practices across the whole country. We should base our operations in the market operations, and at the same time, we should energize the public and the private sector to join this endeavor at the same time. Due to the time limit, I will take the last question for today's press conference. Thank you. I'm from the CCTV Central Radio Station. We have been applying the rural revitalization for many years. For example, by the start of the new century, we have already initiated the beautiful countryside, and later we have published the planification for the rural revitalization. And for this year's #1 document and also for the 14th five-year plan, rural revitalization has become a top priority of the government work. What kind of changes have we witnessed along the path? This is a very good question, because rural revitalization is not a new topic of today. It has been raised since the 19th CPC Congress. Over the past years, we have already yielded some progress. However, by then, our top priority is poverty alleviation, so more focus has been shifted towards the poverty alleviation. But today we have a new major task, which is the rural revitalization. This is a major change. After the proposal of the rural revitalization since the 19th CPC Congress, the Central Committee and authorities have already generated the documents about the rural revitalization. And shortly after that, we have published So just now, you have mentioned that we have been on the road towards rural revitalization. For the next 5 years to come, our goals and tasks are clear already for the rural revitalization. We have the framework in place. At the same time, Central Committee has also published the regulations about the rural work. We have to strengthen the general leadership by the CPC on the agricultural and rural work. Today, the systematic advantage should be better represented by the advantages of our actions. Today, we're also studying the elaboration of a new law about the rural revitalization. By the form of a law, we can strengthen the fundamentals for the realization of the strategy of rural revitalization, and also for the rural management, rural development, integration of development and rural and urban areas. We also have specific policies. In general, today we already have a system in place, all the pillar policies in place to support this strategy of the rural revitalization. At local level, we have also started our trials and pilot programs. Moving forward, for the Three Rurals work, our focus has been shifted towards the full execution of the rural revitalization. For last year's Central Conference on Agricultural and Rural Development, and also for this year's #1 document, we have reaffirmed the importance of the rural revitalization, and we have remobilized the resources. Just now, we have also shared with you the considerations for the realization of this goal. With more forceful measures, we're about to unite more resources to promote the rural revitalization. There are three major changes. First of all, we have realized the top design, and also we have kept up with the detailed applications of the efforts. From the trials, we have moved towards the extension of the good practices. From a focus on certain key areas, we are covering the whole picture of the rural development. So with the rural revitalization, we could accelerate the realization of the modernization of rural development. So that is our major consideration. Thank you very much for Minister Tang and for the other two representatives from MARA. That is all for today's press conference. Thank you.